from the News Channel 5 network. This is Urban Outlook.
Hello and welcome to Urban Outlook. I'm April Eaton. Thank you so much for being with us today. You know, with all that is going on in society today, the unrest across the country in response to the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the other African Americans at the hands of police officers, the unprecedented outbreak of the pandemic that has people sick and dying and even fighting over whether they wear masks or not, the economic downturn that left tens of millions of people out of work. With all that's happening, we have to wonder if it will distract us from another major focus for 2020, and that is the presidential election in November. Joining me virtually to discuss the power of the Black vote is Dr. Learotha Williams, Jr. He's an associate professor of African American and public history at Tennessee State University. And he has been, of course, not only sort of focused on what's going on in society, but of course been focused on the vote. Dr. Williams, are you there? How are you?
Yes, good morning. I'm doing fine, and thank you for inviting me to be on your show this morning.
Well, thank you for talking to us as well. As I said, there's so many things going on. And so have this fear, there's conversations about whether our attention will be taken away from the election come November because of all of the other things we're dealing with. What do you think?
There are a lot of distractions, to be sure. And one of the things that differs this time around is, like in the past, if you had a distraction, you could tune it out. You could put it out of your mind, at least temporarily. But this is not the case with the coronavirus. That's a distraction that we are facing daily, and it is a life or death situation. So we have a multitude of distractions, stuff that may actively hinder our efforts to get out and vote, or our efforts to even encourage people to get out and vote.
There are some who say that the African American vote is going to be key. We've heard that before in past elections. I believe I read that Black voters make up 12% of the national electorate. Is our vote as powerful this year as it has been in the past?
Yes, it is, because the vote is the way we get our voices heard. The vote is the way we put people into office that can directly impact our day-to-day lives. And this year is peculiar because of the national importance of it. But also, we should also underscore that the vote on issues on the state and local level, particularly the local levels, are important because those are the things that impact us most intimately.
Talk about some of the things that are of particular concern, and they may be the same things that we're dealing with in society, right? The injustices that are there, the attention to making sure that our police force operates in a certain way. Education is always on the table. Talk about some of those local issues that should matter to people.
Well, the big issue, the one that's out in our face, is the issue of police violence. And this is nothing new. Oftentimes, as a society, we tend to turn away from it. We tend to ignore it. We tend to marginalize the voices that have said, hey, we are being treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. And that has really gotten to the point now where it's of primary concern, because now it's not just academics talking about it or small groups talking about it. It's something that's out in the streets. And once an issue gets out in the streets, then it tends to take on a life of its own. There is, um, and I think a lot of the fear and trepidation we see with this is because nobody really has control of what goes on when people have moved to the streets.
Yeah.
Other issues, um, and this is a recurring issue as well, healthcare or access to healthcare. The same groups that have suffered disproportionately in American society in terms of health issues, in terms of access to healthcare, affordable healthcare. Um, this is this is really being illuminated now that we see the coronavirus. Um, and of course, all those other issues are still of primary importance as well. Education. If you have a child, you're not really sure what the next academic year is going to look like for them, whether they're going to be on campus, whether you're going to have to do educate them from home, or even issues like childcare and things of that nature. Um, so the environment we are in now, the things that we're dealing with, whether it's the virus or issues of police brutality or education or healthcare, they were already out there. Um, but the current situation has exacerbated it.
And it's interesting because the fact that we have so much motivation, it seems, right now with the protests across the country, where people are talking about the issues, they're wanting to right the wrongs. There's a force behind a lot of these topics, but there's some concern that it may not necessarily carry people to the polls, especially young people whose voice is getting stronger and stronger as we see, reports around the country. But there's this disheartening feeling that their vote doesn't matter. How do we get to those folks about the reality and the power behind the vote when they haven't seen any changes in the past?
And first, let me say I understand their frustration. Um, I was young a long time ago,
Yeah, we both were.
and I understand the frustration of just feeling like nothing is going to change, and there's so many visible cues out there that folks are doing well, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to translate to my lived experience. Um, so I guess to answer your question, how do we get them to see that their vote is important? Okay, I'm gonna go out and vote. So what is that one? A lot of the folks that set policy that directly impact our day-to-day lives are in these positions as a result of the vote. Not only the I guess I should say as a result of the registered voters who go out and vote on election day. Um, so we got issues of healthcare. There are elected officials that have a direct input into our healthcare systems. A couple of years ago, there was a big issue over funding for Meharry Medical College, and I can remember, no, if it was Nashville General, excuse me. And I can remember a group of us met at First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill, to talk about these issues and to talk about how important the vote was, because Metro had some money that we were trying to get directed the to the hospital to help support it, the hospital that supports the most vulnerable in society. As far as education, those school board positions are elected officials. As far as police brutality, the police work for the city. They work for elected officials. So if we need somebody to come in to um, make significant changes to the police force, and we first have to start with Metro. African Americans receive um, um, disproportionate sentences for various crimes. Our district attorneys, the district attorney, the guy that makes the decision to what cases he's going to prosecute, to what sort of sentences they're going to assign to various crimes, those are elected officials. So the vote is important, because even though it seems like something very basic, you go out and you cast your vote and try to see what happens. It's important because those people that ultimately sit in those elected positions control your reality.
Let's take a quick break, Dr. Williams, and when we come back, I want to talk some more about the power of the black vote, but also want to touch on issues that we might be seeing in other places around the country and concerns about suppression and what might be happening at the polls in November. Stay with us. We'll be right back.